Alright, so this is a 50 caliber barrel. It's rifled and it's swamped as well. And swamp, technically, I've read two things about swamp barrels. One, it takes all the middle weight out of the barrel, and so it doesn't make it as end heavy. So when you throw it up to shoot, it almost just bounces on one hand. So they're very pleasurable to hold, very pleasurable to shoot. I read another deal where a German gunsmith actually said that he swamped his because of recoil. To me, both of them are true. I think it does help with recoil, and I think it does help with balance as well. So what you're going to do to lay this sucker out is you're going to put your barrel up here. It doesn't really matter where. This is just a big blank beautiful piece of curly maple, and it's going to be super hard. The more curl you have in the wood, the harder it is to work with, just because it's a harder piece of wood. But you can tell where they cut this stock down that it's starting to drop right here. So we're going to put the breech right around in that area. I like to come forward about an inch of that, just because you got plenty of wood to work with, and it gives you a little bit more back here to work with as well. So I cheat the barrel down just a little bit off the top, about right in there. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to look down and make sure it's pretty straight with the top edge of the stock there on both ends. And once I like it, I'm going to trace the top side of the barrel out. I'm going to come all the way down. So I'm going to mark the bottom side as well, all the way down, just like that. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to mark the end, just so I know where the end's going to be. And I put a mark right here where the breech, the end of the breech is. So I put a mark here, and I come up here on the top and put a mark there as well. That tells me where the breech is ending at. Now that I have that, I'm going to take this back out, or off, and I'm going to draw a straight line where my breech was. You can tell the lines are coming together, skinnier, and then they're flaring back out. That's exactly what a swamp barrel does. So I'm going to measure off this bottom line right here, 1/8 of an inch. Doesn't have to be spot on, but pretty dang close. You can actually go 3/16 as well. And so this is going to be called your web that runs through here. The web is the chunk of wood that stays between the barrel and your ramrod channel. I'm going to do 1/8 inch out here. Alright. I'm also going to put one right here in the middle just to go to 1/8 inch. Alright, now I'm going to lay my straight edge up here. You can use anything for a straight edge. I just use this just because it's accessible here in my shop, and also it works very well for flexing. So you can flex it around stuff to get a measurement. Come down through here. Alright, so this is your web, and it's going to run the full length all the way down your stock. Most all originals that I've researched and stuff, most of them only had about 1/8 inch web. Back here at the breech, some of them might have had up to about 3/16 of an inch. That just gives you a little bit more room to get the lock bolts through, because you're going to have one lock bolt that goes through your web right here, and so it goes through that underneath your barrel and above your ramrod, and goes through the other side. It'll come in from this side, so your side plate side, because this is a right-handed gun. So it's going to come through the side plate side up through here, and it's going to thread into your it's going to thread into right here. And then you're going to have a second one that comes through the exact same way, but it comes right behind the breech right here, and it drills into here. So from here, we're going to come down 3/8 of an inch, which is going to be right here, because we have a 3/8 ramrod. So I'm going to come right up here, and I go ahead and mark this width all the way out. Once again, I'm going to put my straight edge up here. I'm going to mark this, and this is just telling me where my ramrod's going to go. Alright, so there's my 3/8 ramrod. So next step is the belly of the stock. So the belly, you want it to be an 1/8 inch as well. Any more than an 1/8 inch, it starts the rifle or smoothbore, whichever rifle or gun you're building, it's going to start feeling bulky and fat in your hand. And even this web right here is a little bit too thick, in my opinion. So I might actually take it down just a little bit more, just to make the gun have a little better feel to it, a little thinner feel. So from the breech to where your stock transitions, because the belly comes out a little ways and then it transitions up into your ramrod channel. So for that, it doesn't really matter where you go. You can go anywhere between pretty well 9 inches up to 13, 14 inches away from the breech. I like doing mine around 12 inches, 11.5 to 12 inches. And so what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line from here to simulate the belly of the stock. So it's coming down through here. And then I'm going to measure. I'm going to go 10.5 on this one. On a shorter rifle or smoothbore, if you have a shorter barrel but you want it to have kind of a longer look to it, then make this part a little bit shorter. It doesn't make the gun any shorter, but it makes it appear that it's longer. So now, since we have this at 10.5 inches, this is where it's going to rise up from the belly. And you want to go just a shade above center of your ramrod. So right in here, because this is our ramrod here. And so you don't have to measure it. It can just be pretty close. Just right above center is where you want to be. And that thins your stock down a little bit more. Your ramrod is more visible at that point, but your stock feels slimmer. And so we're going to come up here. So it's going to look something like that when we're done. I'm going to run this down like that. So there's the center of our ramrod, just above center. All right, so now we've got the fore-end pretty well laid out, except where the top of the stock is going to be. We've got where the top of the barrel and the bottom of the barrel is going to be, but now we need to determine where the top of the stock on the fore-end is going to be. So from your breech, it's actually going to come down, so we need to find center here. It's going to be 1 inch, the barrel is going to be 1 inch wide at the breech. So we're going to come in here at 1/2 inch. So there's center. If we come down here to about the center of the barrel, if you measure it again, now we're at a little bit less than 7/8. So I'm going to go 7/16 on this one, and then it flares back out to about 15/16. So I'm going to go just a little bit lighter than 1/2 inch. So right there is our center layout. All right, so that's where the top of the stock is going to be. So it's about midways up your barrel. And right here where the breech is, it kind of concaves out. So you don't have to be exact right now, but I just like to draw a line, kind of a half moon shape right here. From right here, this is the top of our tang. So a lot of guys will come out 5/8 of an inch straight back. 5/8 of an inch. I don't necessarily do that. I kind of just start dropping immediately. So right here's where our tang is. But for this particular build, we're going to do a, where it drops here, we're going to do a 3-inch drop. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out here. So right here's the top of the barrel. So we're going to go at the top of the barrel, straight out. So you want to, if the top of your ruler is on your top line, then you want to measure off the top of your ruler up here. So I'm going to measure down 3 inches, because that's where we're going, which is right here. Okay, so 3 inches. So that's how much drop it's going to have from the breech to the top of the heel here. So, and then from there, you got to figure out as far as wideness goes. So this is the kind of butt plate we're going to use. This is actually a Fowler butt plate, and it's steel. And I'm going to work it to make it work for this rifle. So I'm going to do some cutting up here and make it work the way I want it to. But we're going to put it right up here and just kind of take a look at it. And this will tell us how far down we need to come here. So, and leave yourself about 1/8 of an inch of play, and that allows you to move things around if you need to, or something like that. So, all right. So where the lock goes, you have to figure out where the end of your breech is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a ramrod. I'm going to run it down the barrel till it stops. I'm going to put a mark on the very end of the bore here. Bring it back out. I'll lay it on top here and match your line up to the end of your bore. Come down here. I'm going to put a mark here. And what that tells me is that's where the breech plug ends inside the barrel. So now you can measure that to determine exactly what it is. So we're looking at 9/16. It's sitting at 9/16 inside the barrel. So we're going to lay this down here, and I'm going to put me a mark at 9/16. So I know that that right there is the end of my breech plug. And I'm using a 5/16 White Lightning touch hole liner is what I'm going to use in this rifle. So for 5/16, you want to measure out 5/16 of an inch. Which is right here. So that's side to side, how wide your touch hole liner is going to be. And there's your center of it. So now you can take your lock and you can lay it up here. And where the pan, you want the center of your pan lined up with your center, where your touch hole is going to be. And you actually want the top parts of your pan right here. You actually want your touch hole to sit just barely below flush with the top of these. And you don't want it sitting down here at the bottom, and you don't want it sitting too high. It'll cause a little delay, a little more delay than you want in your shots. But I've kind of figured out too, just by watching other gun builders and things, that they've kind of said that right below the tops of your pan right here, just below flush, is where you want your touch hole to be. So I'm going to put it up here, and for now I'm just going to kind of eyeball it the closest I can get it. And then you want to keep in mind here is your web. So I'm going to raise this up just a little bit, because you want the center of the end of your lock plate here in the center of your web. So I'm going to raise this whole thing up just a touch. So right there. And then from here, we look at it, make sure we're pretty straight. And I'm going to put a mark right here on the back side. Whoops. Of that. Alright, so that's where my sear is going to go. So from here, you can start transitioning it down. So what I'm going to do is, I know that this is where approximately where my sear is going to go. It's not set in stone yet, but this is pretty well where my sear is going to be. So I'm going to draw up kind of a makeshift trigger right here. So this is basically what the trigger is going to look like. Just kind of decorative. All right, it's going to sit in there just like that. So you want your trigger pretty well in line with your sear. It doesn't have to be, it's just my preference. I like to put that sear about as close as I possibly can to where the pivot area for the trigger is going to go. A lot of guys want to put the sear towards the back end of the trigger just because you're thinking that you're going to have more leverage and it'll go off better, but it really doesn't. It actually makes it a harder pull when it's back here. When it's up here, it makes it a hair trigger. And so from here, we're going to measure out. It's going to have a 13 1/4 inch pull. So we're going to measure from our trigger out here. All right, so this is going to be the outside of our butt plate right here from the trigger. So that lets you know what size of pull you're going to have. And so from here, we're going to measure from the breech out to where our pull length was. So you can go center. You can go center of the breech here. So we've got 15 1/2 inches. So a lot of guys at this point in the 18th century that I've read about anyway, they would use the golden mean in this portion of the build. So you take 15.5 and you divide that by 1.618, and that'll give you your measurement that you need to lay out for your comb drop, where your drop's going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here like this, and we know this is the top. And a lot of guys will use a guide as well. They'll have like a cutout guide already made, and that's absolutely fine. And it's really the best way to go. But for the video, I'm just trying to show how to lay one out from scratch if you don't have one. And so rifles had a shorter wrist, and not a whole lot of drop in the wrist. There was quite a bit, but there wasn't all that much. And like Fowlers and stuff like that, they had a long, slender wrist on them. But this one's going to have a relatively short wrist. And I'm actually going to figure out our measurement real quick, and then I'm going to come right back. Okay, so I figured out our measurement here. So you take your overall from the breech to the end of your butt plate here, which we had 15 1/2 inches. So you take that, divide it by 1.618, which is the golden mean. And that gave me 9.57. So I measured from where the end of my butt plate is going to be here up to 9, just a little bit over 9 1/2 inches. You can actually make it 9 1/2 if you want. But what that is that's going to be where it transitions from the wrist to the top of the comb. So I'm going to rise up here, and then it's going to come back out like this. All right, and then from there, I'm going to come in here. So we know where the top of our butt plate's going to be. So I'm going to draw a line here. So there's the top layout of the stock. That's what it's going to look like. And then we know our bottom is right here. And so what you want to do is just put it pretty dang close to, you want to leave yourself a little more meat in the wrist for now, because you can always take more off if you need to. This stock is going to be straight along the bottom. Some of them had a curve to them. This one in particular is not going to. So it's going to, and then you take your bottom line here and you just kind of curve it around here. All right. So that's basically what it's going to be. And then this is actually leaving a lot of wood on. We're going to have to take a lot of wood off of here but you'll see when we get closer to it. All right, and then as far as this goes, I'm going to place it up here. There's the end of my butt plate. And in fact, this needs to come down just a little bit. So I'm going to redraw this line right here. All right. Place this up here. All right, and all I'm doing here is I'm going to trace around the inside of the butt plate just to kind of give me an idea of the angle that we're going to be moving in at here. All right. And it's a straight butt plate, so there's no curve in the butt of it. If you look at it, it's straight up and down. And that is your layout of your stock. So next step would be to inlet the barrel. So that's going to be a lot of chiseling, but here we go.